Welcome back to Storytime with Sean. That saying, the customer is always right, isn't always right. Story 1 from the Entitled People subreddit is titled, Customer Mad We Won't Refund Him for an Item He Bought 12 Years Ago. So I work at a call center for a certain members-only bulk store chain, specifically in the online branch. One of the perks we offer our customers is an almost comically lenient return policy. We started limiting certain electronics to 90 days from the date of delivery back in 2016. This will be important later. And our return team needs to look over and approve any returns for orders over 2 years old. But by and large, we'll accept anything. I like this policy. It's easier for me just to process a return than it is to argue with a customer for 20 minutes about how, no sir, it's not our fault that you didn't think to open the box well until after the 90 days and now the computer doesn't work. I can get you over to warranty, but beyond that, my hands are tied. The customers like this policy because it means they basically can return stuff whenever they want within reason. Returns usually approves the 2+ year request unless it's something egregiously dumb. The key word there is within reason. It's early into my shift. I don't even think I'd had my first break at this point. Phones are dead at this time of day, as is typical once the holiday order rush and post-holiday return rush subsides. So I'm sitting there trying to figure out what the heck 71 down on my crossword puzzle is when a call comes through. I snap to attention, give my spiel, and ask what the guy needs. Nobody came to pick up the stove I'm returning. They delivered the new one and took the gas range, but I still have an electric one to return. I'm sorry to hear that, sir. I'd be happy to see what's going on. I checked the logistics scheduler. Only return this guy has is for the one that got picked up. I asked if he has the order number for the item being returned. He does not. I pull up his order history and ask him when he ordered the item. For context, the order history we see on our end only goes back to about 2017. I think August of 2013? So it's gonna be one of those calls, huh? I am not looking forward to having to fart around in the DOS system to find this guy's order number. But at this point, I'm figuring he just had an old phone number on the order, and that's why his pickup isn't in our schedule with the rest of his orders. After about 20 minutes of checking every single membership number on file in our DOS system, the guy claimed he never changed his membership number at any point. He was wrong, and multiple assertions of, the last people just pulled it right up. BS. Not only do you not have the order number, but it's tied to your wife's membership number from over 20 years ago, and it can't even be pulled up with your info at all. Believe me, I flipping tried. I find the order. The return was canceled because our returns team didn't think refunding a 12-year-old stove because it stopped working after 12 years of no issue, judging by our records, is in the spirit of our return policy, since it's highly unlikely the issue was caused by a manufacturing defect at this point. I could go on about planned obsolescence and how things used to be built to last, but unfortunately 12 years is honestly a pretty healthy shelf life for a home appliance these days, and it's definitely well out of any warranty we have. I explain this to the customer as gingerly as I can, and he demands to know why we didn't tell him this years ago. I'm grandfathered into your 90-day policy, aren't I? When did that change? Why didn't you tell me that years ago you weren't gonna accept my return anymore? I need to escalate this now. I try to explain to him that these sorts of situations are handled on a case-by-case basis, and it's less that there's a hard limit now, and more that a 12-year-old appliance starting to have issues can't really be considered a manufacturer defect that we're obligated to refund you for. He's not having it and asks for a supervisor. You got it, sir. I kick him over to my supervisor, who also is like, a stove not working after 12 years isn't really something we can blame on the manufacturer. It's not like we told you a lemon, and move on, but not before he gives me this gem. If I'd known you wouldn't accept my return now, I would have returned this years ago. So basically, just admitting he wanted us to pay him to haul away his junk, rather than thinking his stove reaching the end of its lifespan was a manufacturing defect. Dear God, I'm so glad this job pays well. TLDR. Entitled customer finds the one return situation too ridiculous for our policy. While I'm surprised at the level of this guy's entitlement and the stupidity of probably getting on a recorded line saying that, I'm going to give you some behind the scenes on customer service. Many times when you go to your favorite store and you try to do something you've always done and they tell you, oh, we can't let you do that anymore, you can blame many times people like this. The store tried to give you an inch, but this guy took a marathon. So the next time they change policy, don't automatically yell at the people that work there. Consider that maybe this guy is to blame. On to story 2. Story 2 from Malicious Compliance is titled, Sorry sir, you can't enter your building. A few years ago, I worked armed security at a hospital. The greater hospital system owned 3 large hospitals, each with a 24-hour trauma center. It had a couple smaller county hospitals and dozens of clinics scattered across 3 states. I worked at one of the bigger hospitals in a bad part of town. There were legitimate security threats on a daily basis here. One day, I was told to stand at the main entrance and keep staff out. Apparently, some middle management person wrote a new policy that staff members are to enter and exit the building through the west entrance only. The main entrance was to be used by patients and guests, and they didn't want employees cluttering the main entrance because, God forbid, people see medical staff upon entering a hospital. My task was to stand at the door and tell nurses, doctors, cafeteria staff, facilities, janitors, etc. to use the west entrance. Anyone who refused had their name written down and would be reprimanded later. Now, I had other crap to worry about, like EDPs fighting people in the ER, or people running onto the helipad and taking a selfie with a life flight patient, or dudes on PCP yelling at the wheelchairs, or the old woman with dementia who wandered off and can't find her room. You know, actual security problems. The main entrance hosting was a waste of my time, and it dragged on for several days until one day, a man wearing a suit leading a gaggle of important people all in business attire. The ringleader had an employee ID badge and was speaking enthusiastically to the group. They were heading straight for the main entrance. Sorry folks, gotta use the west entrance. What? Hospital policy, all employees must use the west entrance. We're going to use this entrance, as he points to the door. Okay, but I'll need to take your names down. Your supervisor will be informed. Stares at me like the biggest idiot alive and holds up his ID badge in front of my face for an uncomfortably long time. And every single member of his gaggle with painful slowness. I should add, they were all very polite despite my obvious lack of F's to give. Shortly after, the security supervisor arrives. How's it going? Not bad. I have a dozen or so names. And I show him the list. Is that? He points to the ringleader's name. I don't know. His badge said Chief Something Officer. He looked important. Chief Executive Officer! Yeah, I think that was it. Supervisor quietly walks away. It turns out the CEO of the health system was bringing a group of potential investors, the aforementioned gaggle, for a tour of the place. He was never informed of the main entrance policy change and was greatly embarrassed to be stopped at the entrance of his own hospital by some rent-a-cop. Suddenly, as if magic, staff could use the main entrance again, and I could return to actual security work. TLDR, I was told staff couldn't use main entrance. CEO of the company uses main entrance. CEO is staff. I write him up. Edit. Thanks for the award, kind stranger. When are people going to get tired of changing things that they think are better without checking if it actually makes sense? I wonder if the person that started this whole policy thing got to keep their job or if they needed to update their resume. I bet that CEO was hot as a firecracker in some email chain or phone call somewhere. Well, that'll wrap up this episode of Storytime with Sean. As usual, I hope you had fun listening or reading along with me, however you do it, because I have so much fun reading and entertaining. Reading these stories today helped me remember some of my craziest experiences as a customer service person, so I'm going to be producing those videos soon. So you'll get some content that's not from Reddit, but straight from my brain. YouTube might be giving you some suggestions of some of my other videos that you might enjoy. And you'll enjoy anything I've ever done. So fall down a YouTube rabbit hole of my making. We'll see you next time on Storytime with Sean. Have a good one.